everyone, welcome back to another episode of Canadian Gamers. This is actually our 80th podcast in one form or another. That seems pretty crazy, man. We've been doing this for way, way, way too long now. And to celebrate this glorious, monumental occasion, we will have the worst podcast you've ever heard in your life. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I don't even know what topics you chose, but I do know that you prepared this in like 5 minutes, as
Something
usual.
like that. Yeah.
So what have you been playing lately? Let's start with that, because at least you might get a few more minutes of us talking. Notice I'm talking real slow.
Nothing at all, actually. I've been a big loser. The last thing, I don't know when's the last time we actually spoke, but that's actually how we always start these podcasts, is usually what you've been up to. I went and played Song of the Deep. It's okay. It's not a great game. It's not a crappy game, but it's okay. From Insomniac, I'm kind of surprised that they picked some of the game design choices that they did. For example, they reuse the same concepts for puzzles over and over and over and over again, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I would have rather had they focus more on the weapon and items and stuff like that, like sort of like Super Metroid, you know, instead of making certain areas giant puzzles. But whatever, that's it's a really good game. If you don't know, the whole game takes place underwater. It's a Metroidvania style game, and it has something to do with the topic of the day, actually. But I don't know. I just kind of, I don't know. Like, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, but I just didn't think it was anything special. And I lent it to my brother, and he was the same thing. Like, he played, I think, 2 or 3 hours, and he was like, "No, it's just not going anywhere." So I'm kind of curious if any of you guys have played it, what you thought of it, and if you had any comments to it. Other than that, the only other one I've been playing is Dex, and that's a little indie title. That's a cyberpunk game that is pretty neat. It's got some major gameplay issues that really keep it from being, like, superb. I might be able to do a review of that one in the coming weeks. I'm not entirely sure if I'm gonna, like, if I'm gonna do it or not. We'll see. But it's fun. I'll talk a little bit again. That's another one that I'll talk a little bit more when we get into the topic of the day, because our topic of the day is actually related to those two games. What about you? What have you been doing? You've been nothing, right?
No, I've been playing games.
Really?
Yeah, recently. Since a few decades ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who are?
Recently finished Pokemon Red. So it was the only one missing out of the 3 Virtual Console releases. This one I was doing a versus with a friend, and we polished that off this Wednesday, actually, with our final battle. And I got my sweet revenge, because I lost the first cage match we did, which was with X and Y, and I managed to beat my friend here, so we're 1-1. We're going to have to do decisive cage lock when Sun and Moon is released later this November. I haven't played, actually, Lego Star Wars since we last spoke, which was during the Fanboys last weekend. But now you've told me for a few podcasts now to download Adventures of Mana. I had a $60 gift card that Liz gave me for Father's Day, so I went and picked up a nice gift card with that, and I was able to download Adventures of Mana, and I've been playing the heck out of it.
What you just said made no sense. You were gifted a $60 gift card, so you went out and bought a $60 gift card.
Well, the PS Store.
Aha! Okay.
PlayStation Store gift card. Yeah, no, I don't make much sense sometimes, but that's basically what I meant. And I downloaded Adventures of Mana with that money. Obviously, I have a bit left over, but for now that will do. And like you said, you've covered the review. Actually, went live this morning, I believe, and it's a remake of Final Fantasy Adventure, like one of my best games from my childhood. I played that as a kid and absolutely loved it. And this is basically an extremely lazy remake of that game, but it works. Like, it's a perfect portable game, very, very fun to play. It plays like a Zelda adventure game with some light RPG elements mixed in. And it's basically just a lot of fun. Very, very easy, but then again, some of the puzzles and some of the clues are not really that obvious, so it's really easy to get stuck somewhere, and it's easy to... It takes a long time sometimes to figure out where to go next. Even me, who has already beaten this game, but like 20 years ago, is getting stuck here and there. So far, I've been good. I didn't need to use any guides or whatever, but we'll see if I'm able to keep up the patience. It's just little things. Like, I got stuck earlier. I went back all the way to the beginning of the game because I thought maybe I could now access something, but it turns out that it was an item I had since like maybe the first 30 minutes. You get a battle axe, I believe, in the first 30 minutes. And I'd never used it, so I didn't realize that it cut down trees, and there you go. That was the answer that I needed. Right now I just got the chocobo, which I believe I was able to jump off a bridge with that chocobo. I thought he could run in water for some reason. I guess not. If I recall, you get a ship at some point. Maybe not. We'll see. It seems like it's way shorter than I remember it, but it's probably because as a kid I got stuck so many times that probably like added like 5 to 10 hours just figuring out where to go. Because I think you said it's about an 8-hour game in your review, right?
Yeah, something like that. Like, it's really short. I mean, I spent around 8 hours with it, but I was going for like all the weapons and stuff. Like, if you're not actively searching the map and things like that, I'm pretty sure you could do it quite quickly. Okay. But yeah, let's say the average is about 8 hours. And by the way, did you ever find out with the those pickaxes, the Matic, did you ever find out, does it actually make a different sound when you use your weapon?
With the sword, I'm not sure, but when I got the sickle, it didn't really make a different sound, but there was another animation, like there was like a flash when you hit the wall.
Ah, okay.
But then again, you don't really need to do that because it's really clear. There's like an X, almost
exactly.
Hit me sign on the walls when you can break them. So yeah, been having a lot of fun with that game. There's another Vita game that I was hoping to download, and I don't remember what it is. I wanted to ask you about it, but completely forgot. So I guess we're not going to go down that route, because I've been listening to PS I Love You on Tuesdays like I always do, and they always talk about these Vita games every week, and there's been a few this week released, and when there's like a PS Plus, PlayStation Plus rebate and whatnot, it really makes them cheap, so we'll see. It's always...
Really? Was it released this week?
Well, I know there was an RPG called I Am Setsuna or something like that.
Yeah, but that wasn't for Vita. That was only for PS4.
Yeah, that was only for PS4, you're right.
Well, here, anyway. In Japan, I think it came out on Vita.
Well, who knows?
I don't know. I haven't looked at that yet, but I heard good things, but I don't know, because apparently it's like an old school JRPG, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, that's what Colin said during his review. So it's...
Did he like it?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, cool.
So,
well,
that's about it for me.
Okay, the thing that surprised me the most with Adventures of Mana was the fact that, like you say, it's a lazy port, and really lazy, like unbelievably lazy, because it doesn't even, and this is the thing that really blew my mind, it doesn't use a single feature of the PSP outside of the game. And what I mean by that is, every other type of game, you can, like, switch apps to something else. With this one, the minute you go to do that, it's like, oh, we have to close the Adventures of Mana. And I really laughed at that. I was like, what? Like, if you want to look in on your friends, if someone chats or something, you're pretty much screwed. So that's really funny that the game is...
It's funny that it doesn't use any of the PSP's functions, right?
Yeah, like nothing. So, and it's also kind of weird, and I want to talk about that a bit. I was saving it till after, but we can do it right now because I didn't know you were going to talk about that. Why the hell did they do like the release like they did? Oh, surprise, it's out. Like, was no fanfare whatsoever for that game.
Well, maybe the thing is, like, this, like we said, it's a very, very lazy, cheap port, so maybe they didn't want to spend any marketing money whatsoever. They didn't even want to pay the janitor to, like, go on a forum and say, hey, check out this game. Like, they didn't want anybody to stop doing what they were doing for that. And I think it still, like, was the top, or one of the top Vita downloads that month. So maybe they'll see that they can release quick games on the Vita and make a lot of money doing that. Maybe it's because you'd have to figure that game, the audience for that game that was going to buy that game already probably bought it, and doing some, like, advertising for that would have probably just cost you money for sales that you were going to get anyway. I don't know. We'll see.
No, yeah, you're right. You're probably right, man, because, like, the Vita is such a weird platform to release content for, and, I mean, Collins mentioned it multiple times on P.S. I Love You, that, you know, clearly they must be making money, because the Vita gets so many releases, it's unbelievable, and no one owns the system, so the sell-through for these games must be ridiculously high. The attach rate for the Vita must also be ridiculously high.
Well, it's the same as the Wii U, really. I think the Vitas and Wii U are pretty much neck to neck. The Vita has maybe a bit bigger user base, but both have, I would assume, high attach rates, because when you look at the Wii U and you see games like Splatoon and Mario Maker selling 4+ million copies on a system that doesn't even have 12 million users, like, it's pretty big. So
yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So okay, so let's officially begin, even though we've already begun. Some very interesting news bits that we can either, you know, plow through or talk about in great detail. Ooh, excuse me. So first thing I really got a kick out of this. Square Enix, I mentioned in the last video that I'm not going to be purchasing anything from their site anymore unless it's Dragon Quest, because their quote-unquote special editions, collector's editions, Omega editions, whatever, they've been getting really cheap. Like, they're very expensive, and they're less than what you would get from NIS America and others. And it's just, when it comes here, we get slammed with import duties or custom duties or whatever you want to call them. So why do I mention this at all? Well, because Square Enix sends me emails telling me about the latest collector's editions and whatnot, and they have one for World of Final Fantasy. And one of the selling points, okay, I kid you not, on this special edition is, or collector's edition or whatever, is special DLC. Okay, that's very common. But listen to what this special DLC is. You will unlock the Japanese voices for World of Final Fantasy. And for that, I said, WTF. Is that truly appealing? Like, would someone buy the special edition for that? How can a company even justify doing something like that? Like, I get it, you know, we've had special editions where you get, you know, a white costume. Woohoo, amazing. But this is something like that's, well, no, it's about as lame as that. Like, it's just, I couldn't believe that when I saw that. And it was actually marketed. They were like, it was a big bubble there saying, you know, if you buy this one, it's exclusive. You can get the Japanese voiceovers.
Awesome.
I just, yeah, awesome is right. Like, wow.
If you don't buy the special edition, I guess you have to buy the DLC for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Exactly. So that's amazing, guys. So if you're interested in that game, and to be honest, I don't know anything about it.
Wasn't it in the special edition of Street Fighter V where instead of getting a full CD soundtrack, you got like codes for a demo of the soundtrack or like codes for 6 tracks or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Something like that.
speaking of lame, man, that's like they are, like you said, NIS and Atlas, like release like collector's edition for almost the same price as regular games with full CDs and like awesome stuff. Like Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the 3DS was, I believe, $10 more than the regular edition and came with almost a full guide and a soundtrack and stuff like that. And these companies give you like Japanese voiceovers and codes for a few songs to download.
That's right, and those songs that you download are full of copy protection. So you can't like make a copy, play it on this or that. I remember Ahmed was telling me the same thing when he picked up the Xenoblade Chronicles X special edition or whatever it was called. It came with like a USB key, and on the USB key were like 5 or 6 songs, and they were all copy protected, that they wouldn't work on iTunes, they wouldn't work. Like, it's just, what? I don't understand, man. Some of these companies are just completely out to lunch. Now, here we go. Here's some other news. A lot of you guys are going to be very, very, very happy about this. Last year, I reviewed this game, and I said it was absolutely fantastic. I think it was last year. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Great game. Man, such a good game on the Xbox One. To this day, still remains one of the best games on the Xbox One. Well, Square Enix announced that there will be a new version of the game coming out called Rise of the Tomb Raider 20th Anniversary Edition. It's going to have everything that was released in the DLC post-game of the original Rise of the Tomb Raider on Xbox One and PC. Or was it only Xbox One?
Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PC.
Okay, there you go. Hey! And so fans of the that own it on Xbox One and PC, because if you own it on 360, wow, that power to you. You will be able to download the new modes that are going to be featured on this particular version. And this particular version, obviously, the big hoopla about it is that it will be coming to the PlayStation 4. Now, I doubt very much we're going to get any review codes or anything like that. And I don't know if I want to have an excuse to play it again. It really was going to depend on what else is out at that particular point in time, but it was a great game. So basically, if you are the type of person that only owns a PS4 or only owns PS4 and like a Wii U or something like that, I would highly recommend picking up Rise of the Tomb Raider. And you still haven't even played it, have you?
No.
Oh, man. God.
I haven't turned on my Xbox One. I don't know when the last time was. Like, I still haven't played Halo 5. I think the last game I played on there was Gears of War Collection and Rare Replay.
Well, damn, man. That is such a good game. It really is. It deserves to be played. So there's that. And like I said, I'm very pleased with what they're doing, so that if you did support Rise of the Tomb Raider, you will be able to get all of, there's a couple of new gameplay modes coming out and stuff like that. So you're not left left behind. So that's cool. And then the only other, announcement before we go into, real news that we can actually talk about is the first 2 Dead Rising games are getting remastered, upscaled, whatever, for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So that's kind of cool. If you're an Xbox One and I believe PC owner, because I think it came out on PC, you'll be able to basically have the entire set. You'll be able to get Dead Rising 2, and Dead Rising 3. No word yet if Dead Rising 3 is going to be coming to any other platforms. But I think, like I said, I believe it was on Xbox One and PC to begin with. And now we have Dead Rising 4 coming out on the Xbox One and PC. So, yeah, some pretty cool stuff. Did you... you and I played Dead Rising 3.
Dead Rising 3 is probably my favorite Xbox One games today, just because we had a blast playing that one. Especially with that goofy DLC they released a year after. Yeah, that was amazing.
That was the Super Turbo Omega Deluxe.
Yeah.
That was great. Okay, so because Steven, when I asked him to help me with the podcast, he sent me one piece of news, and it was Nintendo related, of course. So Yokai Watch, is that how you pronounce it, Yokai?
Yeah.
Okay, Yokai Watch, if you don't know, it's been like Pokemon for since the second one came out. Yokai Watch 3 was released, so there's two versions that got released, and at launch it sold 632,135 copies, which is not bad. That's actually very, very good. But the news story here is the fact that while on its surface that looks fantastic, that's a really solid launch over in Japan, but Yokai Watch 2 had two versions, and combined it sold 1.3 million at launch. And now, even more interestingly, was that a spin-off to Yokai Watch 2 shifted 1.2 million units at launch. So Steven was like, "Oh, is this it? Is the fad over?" And I actually wanted, as someone who's played the series, follows it, and is as big a Nintendo fan as you are, do you read too much into this? Was this timing? Did Pokemon Go have something to do with this? Or do you think it truly is starting to wind down a little?
It's funny that you mentioned Pokemon Go, because I read the NPD charts, and Nintendo's note said that the 3DS Pokemon games had a 145% increase since the release of Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go definitely has a certain part to play with it, but the thing is, I've been a Pokemon diehard fan since 1998, basically 1997, whenever it was released in North America, and I've seen this time and time again. Digimon is another example of similar franchise coming in and basically going after a few years. Digimon, I don't think, lived as long as Yokai Watch. Thing about Yokai Watch was that it had some serious potential, because Digimon was the success of Digimon and other related Pokemon spin-offs was always basically the anime. Yokai Watch basically sold tons and tons of games and then had a successful anime franchise onto it. So it was doing what Pokemon did. So it was interesting to see maybe that franchise could actually live, because even though Pokemon is not as, let's say, popular as it is, well, now today it is, but like before Pokemon Go, it's not really at the peak that it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's still well alive today and still sells. Each new entry sells around 10 million copies every time. So that's not too shabby. But seeing that Yokai Watch 3 sold almost, I think that the numbers were 40% less than the second one, it seems to indicate that, yeah, the fad is over. Like, I don't think, unless this is really an exception, I don't see them making Yokai Watch 4, and all of a sudden it goes back to selling as well as the first two did. Still, like you said, 600 or whatever thousand is still a pretty good number. It's going to be a million seller, no doubt, at some point. But that leaves other questions, because Nintendo is pushing this series hard in North America. The first one sold over 400,000 units, and the second one is getting released at the end of September. So is the future of the franchise in jeopardy? We'll see.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow, like, especially with that. Like, what if Yokai Watch 2 actually does better here? You know what I mean? Like, that would be very interesting, and then Yokai Watch 3 comes out and moves. I always get curious about that. If a series starts to, like, falter or fail in one region, but it starts to explode in another, could you actually imagine seeing the series shifted away from Japan and more into North America? That'd be really weird if that happened.
Yeah, I really don't think that will happen, because Yokai Watch, unlike Pokemon, is kind of a universal series, but Yokai Watch is really, really Japanese. You can see it in the game if you would have actually played the game. It's very, very Japanese, the storyline. I think yokai is actually part of Japanese culture. The term yokai, it's actually ghosts or spirits, and you can see them, like, not only in Yokai Watch, there's tons, even some Pokemon are based on yokai and have similar names, so it's something that's very, very central to the Japanese culture.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's our news element and stuff like that. And now we do our 2-second topics of the day. The first one was I just wanted to talk. It's not really a topic of the day. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the San Diego Comic-Con because it gives me a reason to talk about the San Diego Comic-Con. Comic-Cons, man, our whole society has changed so damn much. I cannot believe how Comic-Con has transformed from being this like nerd-centric place to go buy comics, and like spotlighting a lot of these comic creators and stuff like that, to what it is today. Like, to give an example, and I'm not kidding, it was originally like that. It was like a really, really, really small little thing. And today, the Defenders trailer was released, like a teaser trailer, which combines Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones. They showed the first trailer for Luke Cage standalone Netflix series, and also they announced that Daredevil season 3 was in the works. And I just couldn't get over how much Comic-Con has changed. Like, the NES is there, the mini NES from Nintendo. You've got all these huge, giant celebrities there talking about, like the new Marvel movies, the new DC movies, all the way to, like, toy manufacturers talking about different deals they have. It's absolutely bonkers how much, like, our culture has dramatically changed, and how all of these sorts of hobbies and stuff are no longer really, like, not mainstream, if you want to call it that. And there was even a Pokemon Go panel that had to be moved to the largest room because so many people are addicted to that. And this is not really a topic. This was more just me wanting to talk about how much our culture has really changed in the last, like, 25 years. It's unbelievable how much things have changed, and where we're going, I can only imagine. And where this was sort of a little topic, or a micro topic, was just, do you see these Marvel and DC movies lasting, like, more? Like, do you see them going for another 20 years, another 30 years? I'm actually surprised it's lasted this long, and it's not only that it's lasted this long, it's never been as strong as it is right now. These movies continue to make more money than the last one, except the only exception was really Avengers to Avengers 2. But all the other movies that have come out, like the next Thor, the next Captain America, the next, etc., have all made more money than the one that came before it. And I'm just wondering if you think, like, this market can still grow, or if there's it will eventually plateau, and how long do you think this is even going to last?
The thing about this is, as long as they make quality movies, I think they'll be fine. The problem is I don't think that will continue, because there was already, from Avengers to Avengers 2, there was already a huge drop in quality. I'm not a big fan of Age of Ultron. I don't know if you've seen it. You probably have for now on. And the exception to that is that the Captain America movies seem to be getting better and better and better. Have you seen Civil War yet?
No, I haven't. No.
What the heck?
I know, man.
How can you not go see Civil War?
I don't have time like some people.
BS. You have all the time. You don't work on Fridays. You have those weekends off. You have like 50,000 theaters in Montreal, and you don't even go see Civil War. Priorities, man.
I'm a monster.
Yes,
remember?
You are. Anyway, the Captain America movies have been very, very good. The other subject here is that Marvel, it's going to be interesting to see what Guardians do. If Guardians 2 is fantastic, then we're fine. Because Guardians of the Galaxy was a really, really, really surprising movie. I never expected this movie to be that good, and it was. And now the second part, if it's as good as the first one or better, then yeah, I think Marvel still has another 5 to 10 years of making, as long as they keep the quality that successful. The problem with DC is they still haven't produced or made one great DC movie. At least in my opinion, they haven't. So it would be really healthy for the industry if they could get their shit together and then both companies would make good movies. And then also Marvel still needs to get the X-Men rights back, and I don't think they're any close to doing that since Deadpool did so amazing. They're gonna do a few more Deadpools for sure. And Apocalypse, I haven't seen Apocalypse yet, but apparently wasn't that good. So maybe they're gonna be less in a hurry to make another one. And I think there's a third Wolverine movie in the works that's gonna come out soon. But what do you think about all this?
Well, that's it, man. That's exactly it. Like, it's very interesting. This is why I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Because, like you say, I don't think DC's approach, I don't think was wise. So I don't think they've really had the opportunity to do something special yet. They haven't really had that. And unfortunately for them, they can't suffer many more mediocre movies, let's call it that. Like, if Wonder Woman comes out and it's not that great, and Justice League comes out and it's not that great, well, I think that's gonna pretty much be the end of their DC universe. Like, they can't keep going if these movies don't bring in funds. For Marvel, yeah, I'm with you with Age of Ultron. I did not enjoy that as much as the first one. I actually found it was a filler movie. I was very, very perplexed why they even made that movie, but okay, whatever. But I've enjoyed the individual hero movies have been quite good. For Marvel anyway, I've really enjoyed those. Everything, like Guardians of the Galaxy was a very big surprise. I laughed my butt off at that. And that shouldn't have been as big as it was, and I really, really enjoyed it. I just recently saw Deadpool, and I really enjoyed that. Now Fox is saying, by the way, that they want to make Wolverine, the third Wolverine, like a really R-rated movie. So they just need to be careful, Fox, because if they start, like, X-Men swearing and cursing, tons of nudity and stuff, I don't know if that's going to fly. But we'll see. But I don't know. Honestly, for long term, I really don't know. I think it's like you. It's all gonna depend on the quality of the movies. But something that's gonna be fascinating to see is in like the next 5 years, because all of these actors eventually are gonna move on. Like, Thor isn't going to be Thor forever. Captain America is not going to be Captain America forever. And Robert Downey Jr. most certainly is not going to be Iron Man forever. Like, eventually these guys and girls and everything are going to be like, okay, either you're going to have to give us $200 million each, or they're going to need to be replaced. And I think that's going to be, for Marvel at least, because Marvel's movies have been getting better and better. Not all the time there, but overall I would say that the quality has been getting better and better. And I think for Marvel, it's going to come down to that. If they can keep making quality movies and then somehow figure out how they're going to like pass the mantle from one actor to the next, if they can keep doing that, then yeah, I don't really see an end in sight here. It will be interesting.
Well, really the next movie I'm really looking forward to is the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, because one of the best parts of Civil War is Spider-Man. That's why you really need to go see Civil War, man.
Everyone is.
Yeah, I had my doubts when I saw the kid and whatnot, and there's a few things that let's just say it's not gonna spoil much, but basically from the Civil War you can expect that Spider-Man has been active as Spider-Man for around 6 months, let's say.
Okay.
And he's never really fought in battles with like villains or whatever. He's just basically stopped robberies and stopped like train accidents or bus accidents, stuff like that. He's helped people out. And then he gets put in a fight and he kicks some serious ass. And it's cool. It's just he's fighting like these guys that have been fighting for years and years and years and years and years and years. And sure, Spider-Man has like powers that rivals almost anybody. But in the comics, like especially me, I started reading Spider-Man, like the Essential Spider-Man and all those. You can see an upgrade and an evolution of his character. At first, he sucks fighting like just a regular Joe, but eventually he gets better and better, and he gets into one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel universe. But I guess it made sense for them to go that way instead of like... Anyway, that was my only complaint about that, but basically, like, go see the movie, man. They even gave him an accent. It's the first time I never even realized that, reading Spider-Man, that this guy is from New York. He's from Queens, so he should have an accent. They did that in this movie. That's just to tell you how much, like, the Marvel Cinematic guys, they know their stuff and they care. So that was, like, you should go watch it, man.
I will. I'm just waiting for it to be legally torrented. Okay, so our last topic, and this was the main one that I actually wanted to talk about here, but it's putting Steven on the spot, and I hate when he does it to me, so I'm going to go first, okay?
Perfect.
And what it is I just wanted to talk a little bit about certain underrepresented genres, styles, maybe even games. Now, we've done this in some fashion or another, but it's sort of like top 5. Like, we can do our top 5 every year, every 2 years, every 6 months, for God's sakes. And I like to revisit topics like this every now and again. And so for today, that was the thing that I really wanted to talk a little bit about is it can be genres that you feel are a little bit underrepresented, that maybe you have that itch to scratch. It could be styles like pixel art versus 3D. It could be anything. So I'm going to start just to give you a chance to, think. So I've been playing a mix of some indie games and indie-like games over the last little while. For those that don't know, I recently finished off Mirror's Edge, and I had a good time with it. I didn't think it was the end-all, be-all. I think there's some serious potential there that's just... I don't understand why DICE is going in one direction instead of the other. But it was when I played Song of the Deep. When I first got that and I started playing it, I was like, oh man, I miss the style of games so bad. And if you've watched my Let's Play of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night for the E3 version demo, whatever you want to call it, oh my god, it was just fantastic. Like I cannot tell you how successful I think that game's going to be. I think it's going to be what Mighty Number 9 should have been. I'm still a little bit, I'm cautiously optimistic, as they say, but playing through Song of the Deep really scratched that itch. I am a huge fan of those style of games, like Shadow Complex, and I don't understand why more games like that don't get made. Be it from major third-party publishers doing sort of like what Song of the Deep did, like so Insomniac, where you make it, it's not going to cost you $1 quadrillion here, but they put their resources into all the art assets, and it's a really beautiful game. At times, it's like almost like looking at a fish tank that has all these exotic plants and fish inside. It's absolutely beautiful. And then the other one was that game I was telling you about earlier, Dex. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about that just because, well, I'm playing it, and I'm really enjoying that game for the most part. Now, with that, it's a style. Dex, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this podcast, so I think it's only fitting I'm going to mention this towards the end, that Dex is a cyberpunk game, and I am a really big fan of cyberpunk anything. I think it's a fascinating universe that is just for one reason or another overlooked time and time again. I don't know why. When I first saw the trailer to this indie release, I was like, okay, it looks cute. It's a 2D game. It had a lot of the same feeling I got when I played that Sega CD and PC game from way back when, Rise of the Dragon, which was essentially an interactive digital novel where you move around and you just click areas of the screen. But this has, like, it's a real game, if that makes sense. Well, not that digital novels aren't, but you move left to right. It's an action game, a 2D action game, sprite-based, and it looks beautiful. Like, I absolutely love little details that people put into their universes. And this is something that I find missing. And yes, I like Cyberpunk as a whole, and I can't wait to see what the Witcher guys do with Cyberpunk 20... I forget what it's actually called. I can't wait to see what that is going to be like. But it's the little touches. Like when I played Mirror's Edge, there's very little touches in that game. Yeah, there's certain elements of, like, say, apartment buildings or things like that, where you get a couple little touches here and there. But a game like Dex, it's an indie release. It's by a small developer, and yet there's everything from, like, little insects moving around to, like, when you go to, like, this bordello type of thing, and you see, like, people are dancing and they're moving and their little clothes are moving around. It's crazy how much attention to detail is put into a game, and how the game worlds come alive, and so few developers ever manage to get that right. Now, I know I'm jumping like all over the place here. I've talked about underrepresented genre with the Metroidvania style. I've talked about styles as a whole being Cyberpunk, and then talked a little bit about the fact that I don't know why it is that some people can really nail a world and others can't. This morning I was playing through a couple of Saturn games to capture some footage for some reviews, and it blew my mind how generic some of these games were in relation to something, say, like Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64, while incredibly basic, its world is cohesive. Like, it feels like it belongs together, and there are little touches here and there, nods to older games, throwbacks, and I never understood why certain developers can really nail that, and other ones have such a hard time doing that. So I don't know what you want to add to any of that, if you want to talk about some of your underrepresented games, genres, styles, or what have you, but I wanted just to get a little conversation going on some of this.
Yeah, Metroidvania would probably be one of my answers. I saw the Let's Play of Bloodstained. Colin put it out, I think, yesterday or the day before. And I started yours when you released it, and I stopped almost immediately because I couldn't get over the visuals. For some reason, the visuals didn't click. But I gave it another chance, and although I still I'm not a big fan of the visuals for some reason, I can see some of its appeal when the final boss of the demo is like some kind of giant squid, if I recall, and it looked pretty cool when it was bouncing from one place to the other, and the game looks like it's gonna be a fantastic game. At least it looks like it plays the part, so it has that advantage over Mighty Number 9. For me, I can think the biggest one I can think of, and I'm just gonna call it Contra games. And the last Contra game I played, I believe, is Contra 4, and that was on Nintendo DS, and that was a fantastic game. And I'm not sure if they have released. It's Konami, so they probably did it. They probably released some kind of mobile game. But besides that, I don't think they've released anything since Contra 4, and I could be wrong. But I really, really miss the Contra games. Like, there are other games in the, I guess, run and gun shooter genre, you can call it, like Metal Slug. I've never really been a fan of any other series than Contra, though, for some reason. I've always loved Contra because I played that to death on the NES. It actually made, I believe it was number 5 on my top 10 games of all time when we did that Canadian Gamers a few months ago. I always been a fan of Contra. I never could really love much anything else, so I would really love it if that series would make a comeback. And of course, again, I'm not really going into a genres, but I'm going into a series, and that's okay. It's F-Zero. F-Zero, really, really, GX, the last game for the GameCube, there might have been like another GBA game after that, but that game was just fantastic. One of my favorite racing games of all time, and Nintendo just has a gem that's been hiding for years and years, and they just need to give it to somebody. Like, the last game was made by Sega, I believe, so they can hire somebody else to use their IPs, their dormant IPs, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, man, that's a good one. Contra, that's a good one. Run and gun shooters. That's a genre that there's been some really interesting ones. Like there was Alien Hominid. There was there have been a couple released over the years that have been pretty good. Metal Slug, what I've always loved with that is the animation. It's almost like playing through a comedy. Like it's like a really gory comedy. But I've always loved that. Yes, of course, there's always been the whole, like, why in the hell can't you shoot diagonally? But it's funny you mentioned this series because there's actually an indie release, which I have a feeling is going to end up being one of the most expensive things I actually own. The guys at NG Dev Team I've been working on for the last, 2 years, I think it is now? Krautbuster. And they're so funny because one of the selling features of the game is that you can shoot diagonally. I was like, amazing. How about that? But that's a great genre. Seriously, that's a really great genre to mention. And I know Konami did release, and I believe it was after Part 4, they did release, it's not Contra directly. It's, what was the Genesis Contra game?
What I have is Hard Corpse in my mind.
Okay,
but I'm
that's
not sure.
it. They made a sequel. I'm pretty sure it was a sequel, not a remake, on PS3 and Xbox 360. But it was only I can't remember what the hell it was called. It was something Corpse. Hold on a second here. Konami.
Was it a 2D run and gun or was a hybrid?
That's a good question. If I can find it. PS3. Let's put it like that. It's called Hardcore Uprising.
Okay. I haven't heard it because I played the arcade Contra on the 360. I know they released it there, but not really. I haven't played a new Contra since Contra 4.
Well, you should check this out because it's a 2D all the way, and it even has the stages where you run into the screen.
Nice.
Yeah, no, and it's all like it uses a form. It looks like it uses a form of cell shading. But you'd have to check it out, man. I don't know. That's the only one. That was the last one that I recall. I'm sure people are going to tell us, "Were you stupid?" And there's 50 million. And yeah, of course, I'm sure on, like you said, on mobile, that there's probably like 50 billion more. But Konami is Konami, man. I would love to have another Castlevania, even if it wasn't Metroidvania, even if they went back to like the action or more series like Rondo of Blood. I'm in the mood for those kind of games. And Contra's another, that's actually a really good one that you mentioned. I'm happy you mentioned that. And even with the F-Zero stuff, that's a great series that seems to, and not just series, but even a genre, like that futuristic racer at ridiculous speeds. Let's call it like that. There hasn't been one of those released in a long time. For a while there, you had Wipeout, but it's different because you got weapons and things like that. But even that series is now gone the way of the dodo. So, I don't know. Does anyone else out there listening, do any of you guys know what futuristic racer with really an emphasis on speed
there was one released on the Wii U, I believe, earlier this year on the eShop. I don't remember the name, but I think it was pretty popular for the Wii U kind of thing. But I know there was one on the Wii U released that was cool. It was like a spin-off between, or not a spin-off, but like a mix of Wipeout and F-Zero. But
did you try it?
Of
course not.
I have not had the chance to.
Damn you. Well, that is pretty much what I want to
do. My topic.
You have one?
I did. I talked to you about it. You said you could not, but since you just put me on the spot, I thought I'd do the same for you. And this is something I've talked to you about for years and years now, actually. And we've never...
If you want me to do a top 5, I'll never be able to list your 5 games.
Yeah, you will. You will. You will. Damn it. You must. You are under pressure now. You can't let the audience down. They pay big money to come hear your talk on this. So you must. So basically, I had 2 different categories that I want to do eventually. It's basically the top games that you love that everybody hates, and the top game that you hate that everybody loves. And first, I want to start with the top games that you love that everybody hates. And I have a few, and instead of doing like a top 5, we'll limit it to 3. So that will be a bit more manageable for you.
If you say so.
I will actually start, and by then you'll have a lot of time. And remember, you've played a lot more games than I do. You've played like a million more games than I do. So dig deep, or don't even. It's not that hard. Stop being a baby. The first game is
no promise.
a game that both you and I really liked. We did a review of it, and even in our review, all the comments seem to basically hate us. And most of the comments did not actually play the game, which is funny, because this is a game that if you look at like 10 reviews, you'll probably find 2 positive and 8 negative. Like, most people did not like this game, and it's an Xbox One launch title, so you should know what it is by now. Right?
Not a clue. No, I have a feeling.
So I don't remember the subtitle, but it's the Rise game.
Son of Rome.
And this was an Xbox One launch title, and it was kind of a mix of what's the game I'm looking for? It was a God of War and a more like simulated type of fighting system instead of being arcadey like God of War. I don't know how to, but it didn't really get good reviews, and I had an absolute blast playing it. I don't know why, that game resonated with me. I had fun playing it, and maybe it's because I bought it and expected like a shitty game, so I was pleasantly surprised. But I just thought it was fantastic. And then I told you about this, and then you started playing it, and you felt pretty much the same. And we did a dual review of it. We got bashed in the comments again, and most people did not play it, which I found funny. But it's just one of those things that there are games that get certain reviews, and by the way, the people who reviewed it who did not like it had like very, very nice thoughts. Like, they had their reasoning behind it. So I'm not saying that this is a good game. I'm just saying that, well, we gave it a 9, so I guess we are saying it's a good game. But I'm just saying that people who don't like it have valid opinions, and I'm not here to tell you that they're wrong. It's just that at least they played the damn game, so it's a lot like easier for me to accept their opinion. But it's just that certain games, they get put into certain categories, and they're universally hated, and you can't. And this is one of those games that I thought was really funny that people hated, but I really, really liked.
Yeah, that was a good one. That it's funny because a friend of mine just picked up an Xbox One, and that's the first game he like played because it came with his system, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And I just laughed. So that's funny that you mentioned that everybody hates. And he calls me yesterday. He's like, "This game is awesome."
It is, damn it.
So yeah, I've got a good one. It's called Super Mario Brothers. Man, everyone hates that. No, actually, there's a couple that I can think of. I'm glad you didn't say 5 though, because I'm actually surrounded by a few of them, and one of them is interesting. Okay, and I want to mention this because it's weird how perception changes over time. I'm glad you mentioned a new game, because I'm going to mention an old game. With Rise, this is like the general consensus from our perspective at that point in time. Today, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, we could get all kinds of people saying, "What are you guys, crazy? That's the greatest game ever," and blah, blah, blah. And back in the day, Legend of Dragoon on the PlayStation 1 was universally praised, mostly, I'd say, in magazines at the time, but almost everyone I knew hated that game. They did not like it. And there's a reason, I'm using this as a validation, there's a reason why there was never a sequel to that. This was at the height of the RPG craze on the PlayStation 1. And today on YouTube, mentioning this, people are going to say I'm crazy. So I don't know if I want to use that as an example, but I wanted to use it as an example to show you how perspectives can indeed change over time. That when that came out, there were so many people that weren't into it. They're like, it's just a Final Fantasy clone and whatever. And yet today it's regarded as one of the best RPGs on the system. So it's really weird. But no, the game I wanted to talk about on the PlayStation 1 is Galarians, or Galarians. I don't know how it's pronounced. This was supposed to be like a psychological version of Resident Evil. If I gave it, and Silent Hill, if I gave this copy to you today, you would break the disc in half, and I think it's actually like 4 discs or something, and you'd probably like shoot someone because it's so unbelievably frustrating. The load times, I swear to you, they feel like they're 6 minutes to open a door. Like, it's unbelievable. But I don't know why. It resonated. That was a great word you used. It resonated with me quite well, and I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. I don't pretend to think that it's like a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's a really good game that's completely overlooked, and one day I'm going to review it. But that's a game that everyone hates. Like everybody. To this day, people hate it, and rightfully so. It's a pretty shitty game, but I really like it for whatever reason.
All right, next up, I'm gonna name two titles, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because those are not really universally hated. They're more like controversial games. Let's call it that. And they are Resident Evil 5 and Halo Wars. Resident Evil 5, it starts with Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 has got fantastic reviews, and rightfully so. But there's a hardcore Resident Evil, the ones that like the old school type of games, because Resident Evil 4 is kind of the last one that still has some elements from the first 3, but went into a whole new direction. And many people did not like that, and basically that's why Resident Evil 4 is controversial, but not as much as 5. Basically 5, the reason that many people don't like 5 is because it's a co-op game. Sure, you can play it alone, but it's basically, you have this character, I think her name was, no, I'm thinking of Ashley from Resident Evil 4, but there was this other character you could play as both, basically. And you play the entire game with 2 people. It's kind of, I think Resident Evil 0 is the same, but Resident Evil 0, of course, you could not play with a friend. But I absolutely love, because I always been a guy that loves co-op gaming even more than just, I prefer co-op gaming basically is what I want to. And even though Resident Evil 5, it wasn't as scary because of that, I just had a blast playing with my brother-in-law and getting all the achievements back in the day. I just didn't care. This was a fantastic game for me, and I loved it. The next one, Halo Wars, also got pretty good reviews, but the reason I'm mentioning this is I remember telling people I was playing that, and everybody called me a Halo fanboy, and maybe that's true. I'm not denying that. At the time, I really was in love with the Halo series or franchise. But that's not the only problem. We've talked about Warlocked before, which is another RTS game. The thing about RTS games is that if the game is not on a PC, then you get laughed at for liking it. And it seems like it's a crime for liking a console RTS. And that's why I'm including Halo Wars here. Because for whatever reason, I never could enjoy gaming on a keyboard and mouse setup. I don't know why. I am the type of guy that absolutely needs to have a controller in his hands to be able to have fun. It's just the way it works. There are a lot of people that, I know I'm not the only one, but most people can have fun no matter what, and I'm just not one of those guys. And because of that, I decided to include those two lighter games on this list.
You're copying out, man. These are easy. So I've got one here. I gotta dig it out here. I don't remember what it was called. One sec. What the hell? Where is my flashlight? Here we go. Okay. Resistance Burning Skies. People knocked the crap out of Resistance. They knocked the crap out of... what was the other one? I don't remember. Killzone Mercenary was pretty much the only first-person shooter on the Vita that people liked. But I actually really enjoyed Resistance on the PlayStation Vita. And I wrote a review for it, and I gave it a low score. I gave it a low score because it has gameplay issues. But in terms of enjoyment, in terms of actually having fun, that's a really good game. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I'm a giant fanboy, apparently, because of that. I was telling a couple of my friends when the Vita was, actually still sort of relevant, and they were like, "What are you, out of your mind? This is crap, and this and that, and blah blah blah." And today, I'm gonna open a tab here. I want to see what Resistance. What was it? What did I just say it was called? Burning Skies. All right, let's see what the Metacritic is on this. 60% is the Metacritic. So there you go. And there were 10 positive reviews, there were 43 mixed reviews, and 10 negative reviews. And really, honestly, I loved the Resistance universe. I thought that was a really interesting universe, and I'm very, very disappointed that it appears to be dead. I thought that was a really unique twist, and unfortunately, I think it's gone for good, which is really unfortunate for me. But yeah, that's a game that it's a very simple first-person shooter, but it was fun. Like, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, and apparently, I am the only person alive that had a good time with it.
Good. That's one of those games that you were supposed to send me and never did, by the way, on the long list of games.
Yeah, there's tons.
All right, so for me, I'll end it off with 3 games because I'm giving you more for your money today.
Yeah, but give us real games that people hate. Halo Wars. Who hates that?
I'm telling you, I got laughed at for playing that by those damn PC elitists.
Damn them.
Like you.
Yeah.
All right. You actually don't like Halo Wars. You said that in the previous podcast. So there you go. There are people who don't like Halo Wars.
Yeah, but look at the Metacritic of that. It's like 92 or something crazy.
Because it's a good game. But, damn you. You're missing the point. You're missing...
I gotcha. I'm just busting your balls.
3 games now. You can bust my balls after. I'm going to name you a GameCube game and then a few other multi-platform games. I'm going to start with the GameCube game.
And let me guess, it's Beyond Good and Evil.
Well, that was a multi-platform game, so it doesn't really make sense. It was part of the famous Capcom 5.
No! Don't steal my last game!
Which ended up being, I think, Capcom... Actually, only 2 of those games were exclusives. I don't remember. But the game is Project Number 03.
You suck! Damn you!
And... it's funny because that is probably the first review I ever wrote for Project COE, and I don't think it's up yet. Because this was ProjectCOE.com at the time went many changes. And the first actual site was just black with basically titles that you could click on, and that was it. And I wrote a review for that game, and I think I gave it like 15 out of 10 or something. I was a big fanboy. I gave it a high score, but I really loved the game. It's not great. I'm not going to tell you it's great, but it's really, really simple, and I just had a blast playing that game. And it got terrible reviews. Terrible reviews down the line. My next game, I'm going to try to steal another one from you. What could you say?
Well, you ruined Christmas
the next
now.
one is actually one you could actually list is Spider-Man Web of Shadows. And that one got, I think, the Metacritic, if you check it, probably around 68, 67. So it's not that universally hated, but I think coming off the success of Spider-Man 2 and 3, where people really love those games, I was surprised by the negative press this game got, because when I played this, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I much prefer it to the sequel, not the sequel, but the other Spider-Man games, the one that featured 4 universe, I don't remember the name, Shattered Dimensions maybe? That one got really good reviews, and it was a fun game, but I just, for me, a Spider-Man game needs to be open world, and you need to be able to just swing everywhere, and that was amazing in Web of Shadows. The story wasn't bad either. Just a fantastic game, I think. I think that one really, really probably stands the test of time, and there's a Vulture fight. Like, Vulture is one of those classic Spider-Man villains that's underused, in my opinion, and he's in there. Amazing game. I still stand by that. The last game I'm going to talk about is far from being a good game. Like, it's a terrible game. Very terrible game. But for some reason, I loved it. And that is The Walking Dead Survival Instinct. And I bought that for my Wii U basically just before my son was born and beat it in like 2 days or something. It's a really, really basic first-person shooter. Not much effort went into it. The game looks like a PS2 game. But I had a blast. I don't know why. It's one of those things I cannot explain, but it's one of those games I just had a blast playing, even though it's not really good. And that's it.
Well, I've got one that, like, you stole the one I wanted to end off with, you bastard. But I've got one that is going to be the reverse of Legend of Dragoon. And that is Metal Gear Solid 4. And yes, everybody loved it when it came out. Everybody. But it has not gotten a lot of, how can I say this? Like, praise over the years. Like, people seem to really knock on it like a lot as time has gone on. But
it's a terrible game. That's why.
You see? And I don't know, man. There's just, I don't know. It's one of those things. My love affair with Hideo Kojima is secretly in that game. You can find it in the code. No, I don't really have anything to say. It's just that that's one game that I think is going to go on that everyone's going to be like, oh my god, it's a terrible game.
No,
like,
actually,
awful.
It's funny because most people love that game. Like, it's a funny... Colin and Greg made a top 25 PS3 game list for IGN, and it still stands today. And they didn't include Metal Gear Solid 4 in it, and it's a really controversial subject that they get asked about time and time again, because people really like... All my friends that played Metal Gear Solid 4, they all told me that it was the best game ever, and blah, 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 blah. Most of them, though, were not big Metal Gear Solid fans. Like, that's why I'm surprised by your topic as much, because most of them, Metal Gear Solid 4 was their first Metal Gear, or really the first one they spent some real time playing. For me, Metal Gear Solid 3 is the best one, but then I bought my PS3 for Metal Gear Solid 4. I was hearing all those things, and I played it once, and basically played it because it was Metal Gear, just to force myself to play it. I thought it was absolutely horrible. Like, the worst Metal Gear there, and that's why I maybe haven't had much need to go and play Metal Gear Solid 5, because Metal Gear Solid 4 was such a disappointment for me that I'm not sure I'm going back to that series, but whatever, man. Each to each their own. Like, I know I'm in the minority there, so...
No, but you say that, but you're not much anymore. Like, as time has gone on, there's been more and more and more and more people have been quite vocal about Metal Gear Solid 4.
It's a terrible game. There's no gameplay in it, and the story is bad. It's just bad. Like, I think at some point, like, Snake is dying for like the 17th time in the game, and of course he doesn't die. So by that time, there's just no drama whatsoever. They've already tried to tell you that he's gonna die, only to not have him die. At some point, you just don't care. Like, kill him already, and he doesn't die. It's just, oh my god, I don't know.
I'm going to tell you why, if I can get my sentence out. So, with me, I absolutely hate the last, the ending of the game. I detest it. Of all the Metal Gears, that last chapter should not exist. It was awful. However, what did it is I think it's because I was, and notice I say was, such a huge Metal Gear fan. When you return, spoilers, when you return to Shadow Moses Island, that did it. I was just like, this is freaking awesome. And seeing it in, like, you know, the PS3 graphics and in high definition and all that stuff, I was just like, oh my god. Like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And I think it's because of that it outweighed a lot of the other negatives. Because I'm not oblivious, that's for sure. Especially not now, like in hindsight, looking back and stuff. But it's that. That was such an awesome experience going through Shadow Moses again. And, you know, like hearing the dialogues with Sniper Wolf and all of that. Because I absolutely loved the original Metal Gear Solid. So anyways, that was just that. So are we switching topics to the reverse now?
No. We're going to keep that for another time.
Oh, you got me all excited.
Well, we got to save some for next. We can't give it all in one podcast, man. We won't have any juice.
Sounds good. So then I guess we're going to end it off here. So thanks, everybody. This was our shortest podcast ever at 1 hour and 47 minutes. And no, I'm kidding. So that's it, pretty much. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I guess we'll see you all in a week or two, depending on Steven's lazy schedule. Take care, everyone.